Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. I'm Mark Fierro with Fierro Communications Vice President Jeff Haney and Tyler Morgan, publisher of Vegas Legal Magazine. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's time for the end of the tax year. When you think about who you're going to make a donation to, what about an organization that gets kids away from a computer, a screen, their phone, the TV, and be out there in the real world? Get Outdoors Nevada has a very special focus, and that's teaching kids an appreciation for the great outdoors of our state. Get them out there, have fun, and pick up some trash to keep it clean for everyone. Today, our special guest, Mauricio Baca, Executive Director of Get Outdoors Nevada, one of our favorite environmental organizations because it teaches kids so much about true appreciation for our great state. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you so much for having me here today, Mark.
So give us the big picture. Tell us all about the core ideas that you get these kids out and they're having a great time. And while they're out there, they get to see our wonderful state.
Well, just as you said, our state has millions of acres of public lands. Our area is actually encircled by 7.5 million acres of public lands. We've got parks, we've got trails. All of these are basically outdoor classrooms. They're places that kids can explore, that can be activated for education. And face it, being outdoors is just fun. And for a lot of our kids here, you mentioned screen time. They're used to sitting in front of screens. They're not being introduced to the fact that it really just feels good to be outside. That once they kind of break that little tether, that connection, and they start exploring, that it lights up their dreams. It opens up a whole new landscape, literally, that they can enjoy. As we see it every day, we see kids get outside, get outdoors, who have never been outdoors, who haven't explored. And you just see all the stuff that we have in our modern day culture kind of melt away, and they really become kids. You see them like smell creosote for the first time, or see a hawk in the air and they haven't seen that before, or maybe a bighorn sheep. And their eyes light up and they start to make connections to things that they've been learning in the classroom or things they've heard about that they've never really made before. And they start to connect to themselves and to their community and just a whole bigger picture that they haven't thought about before.
When I was a little kid, I had a friend and the family was very organized. They had a bunch of boys and we would go on these trips, and one of them was to Chantry Flats in Southern California up in the San Gabriel mountain range. Well, for years, the mountains were at the end of the block, but when I was actually in it, it changed everything for me. There's never been a time that I haven't looked at a mountain ever in my life and not thought of that place and the Strawberry Peak and some of these other points. But and if it's just a picture to you, you don't get the excitement of it. You don't have that big rush. And these kids really come away with an impression for life, right?
That's exactly right. And that's why we started a microgrant program where what we do is we take larger grants and donations and we distribute them to schools in $200 increments so that we can get even more kids outside. And it's this idea that these kids do need to get directly connected. And face it, we have a lot of families and kids where their parents are working maybe 2 or 3 jobs. And it's just, they're not getting out there. And maybe their parents just haven't been able to allocate that kind of that focus on the funding because they've got to drive their car, use up gasoline, maybe there isn't public transit. We're getting the kids out there, they connect with these places, and then maybe they can help them connect their families. We also let them know about their local parks, their regional parks. We don't want the outdoors to be a Disneyland once a year experience. We want them to really connect to it on a regular basis. I think about my stepdaughter said this beautiful thing years ago when she was maybe 8 or 9 years old. And we were talking about our experience being outdoors. My husband and I were saying, like how that's kind of how we reconnect to ourselves. And she said, yeah, when I don't go outside for a long time, it's like there's a tear in my heart. And then I go outdoors and it gets taped back up again. And it was just the cutest thing, but it's true. I think that's how it is for a lot of us. I know for myself, I don't feel the same if I haven't had a chance to just walk outdoors for a while.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I mean, Las Vegas and all of Nevada are great for the outdoors. But I mean, it ranges from some of the most remote wilderness areas you can imagine are not that too far from where we're sitting. But then right down to, simple city parks, county parks, that sort of thing, Which of those does your organization focus on? Is it a little bit of both? Does it encompass the entire spectrum?
We actually encompass the entire spectrum. We're a little different that way because we, as an environmental organization, usually think kind of exterior.
Right.
What we do is we actually work with the city, with all of the jurisdictions here in Southern Nevada, around our valley. We work with the city of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Clark County, city of Henderson. We've done cleanups in the Boulder City area. We do work with the Forest Service, the Fish and Wildlife Service, the Bureau of Land Management, the Park Service. Pretty much because what I was talking about earlier is that idea that we want to get to our local parks and trails, that idea that they all belong to us. And just as you said, it's true. You can have these incredibly rugged experiences, maybe a couple hours away, or you could just go to your local park and trail and simple pair of shoes. You don't need a lot. You just go out and enjoy it.
It's right down the street. Yeah.
Are you working with the schools in specific when you're doing each event, or is it you're doing these events and activities and multiple schools are involved?
There's a range. On the microgrants, individual teachers can apply, and that way we can help them get to the experiences they want to. Since they need funding for transportation, they can. Some teachers barely have money for paper, let alone offering an enrichment like a field trip. And then we have another set of programs called the Next Generation Science Standard programs, where this year, for instance, we're in 9 different schools. We take an entire grade level and we work with them, helping them really explore science in this creative way. That's the Next Gen Science Standard. We take the entire grade level for 2 weeks, and then it culminates with a field trip.
Wow.
So we also do after-school programs with City of Las Vegas Safe Key, and then we do summer programming as well that we've been doing with Clark County Community Center. So it's a range.
Oh, that's great.
This is like it's small and it's on point, but there is like a field marshal approach to when you take these kids out. And there, I've seen it's very methodical the way all of the supplies and the equipment and everything is loaded out. Tell us a little bit about the way the organization works when it hits the street.
I say I have the most amazing team. I get to be the lucky one and kind of be the figurehead, but my folks did 600 educational programs last year. We're fortunate to be able to work with Clark County's Mojave Max program, and I mentioned the Next Gen Science Standard program. So they'll go into the classrooms for 2 weeks. They'll work with the kids on these interactive exercises like, designing their own parks and thinking about what they would want. And then they go out to the park. And you mentioned it's a big exercise. If you're taking an entire grade level, we've got our staff members, we have volunteers, we work with the teachers. We want to make sure that the kids have an amazing experience, that they have a safe experience, that when they go home, the only thing they remember was that it was fantastic. They write us postcards afterwards, these great little notes, and they have drawings of our team, like, Miss Shelley, I love you, thank you so much for helping. This was fantastic. I never experienced the outdoors this way before. Like, thank you, Miss Teresa, for coming into our classroom and taking us outdoors. We've never done anything like this before. It was just incredible. You see them light up in an incredibly different way.
You know what? It strikes me that there are so many environmental organizations that have a big, long plan, and it's out there, and things move, but they tend to move very slowly. There's a lot of discussion, a lot more meetings. You guys are like action, 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 aren't you?
In some ways, it really is true. Our cleanup programs, part of that is connecting the community to the idea that these places belong to us. And so it's up to us to take care of them. And sometimes we take folks out to a park, for instance, where they think, oh, this place actually looks really good. Why do we need to be here? You start doing the cleanup. 2 hours later, you've got bags and bags of trash, and you realize that you don't want to do the cleanup when it looks horrible. You want to do it actually while the place still looks good. You want to keep it looking good. And we talk about things like micro trash and why you don't just drop your trash and why you want to pick up and why you clean up, why it all matters. We just did it with a class of kids, and they were out there just really engaged and picking stuff up and learning about it. And the big question they ask is, why do people leave this stuff in the first place? We wish we could answer that question, but we can be part of the answer in providing a solution to cleaning it up and just loving our community, loving our parks and our trails, and making sure that they're places we can enjoy forever. They're amazing investments, and it matters.
Yeah, picking up trash at first glance might not sound very glamorous, but it's really one of the most important things you can do in this field. Do you think they come away with like real lessons learned or inspiration from your programs, especially the ones focused on cleanup?
I think they really do. Yeah. Well, especially when they see the bags and bags afterwards,
Yeah.
right? And they understand that, like, they don't want to live in a dump. I mean, literally, that's what it feels. That's what they realize that it's like. And they care about the environment. They care about the planet. And it honestly, strangely, it can be really kind of fun doing a cleanup. You know, you bond together as you're doing it. We have people who come out, not just kids, but adults, all ranges of ages. And it's partly a way to connecting your community, to realizing that you live with other people and you all care about this place. Last year, we did over 100 volunteer events.
Wow.
And the vast majority of those were with local residents. Only a few of those were people from out of town.
Think about that number. There's only 365 years a day you're out there. That is amazing.
amazing.
That turnaround time is just amazing.
And again, my team is awesome. We only have a couple of full-time people at any given time, maybe 3 to 4 part-time people. And they're just amazing. I think they clone themselves. And they create a really fun event. We have all the equipment, so nobody needs to bring anything but themselves. We've got the water, we've got snacks, we've got the gloves, we've got the cleanup stuff, everything. And we have a fun kickoff, we have the program, close it up. Sometimes with some of the organizations, we do it at a place where they can have a barbecue or like a little gathering afterwards so they can talk about what they did. And we always take a big celebration photograph with the teams after they're done.
Are there any, with all these trips that you do, are there any parks or areas of activity outside around town that you think are maybe underappreciated, that are kind of like neat little gems of places to take your kids and go have fun?
Underrated, maybe?
Yeah, maybe like some underrated hiking spots or anything.
Well, the thing is, we have so many, right? There are a lot of local parks, the city of North Las Vegas, all of them actually. I mean, there's Boulder City has beautiful parks, and a lot of folks don't think about the fact that they're right next to Lake Mead National Recreation Area, which is amazing in and of itself, but then they have great little parks. The city of Las Vegas, actually one of our oldest parks, Lorenzi Park, is this little treasure where they have a pond, and they do fishing sometimes with Endow to show examples of fishing. And it's one of our oldest parks, Sunset Park. And of course we have some of our amazing areas like Valley of Fire, which I once had somebody describe as a smorgasbord for the senses, because it's just got so much to see.
That's true.
It's amazing.
Yeah, if you haven't gone down to Boulder City and seen the bighorn sheep as they're standing around and feeding and sunning themselves, you're really missing out. That should be a must-do destination for anyone.
True.
Boulder City's a really pretty little city.
Yeah.
I was shocked the first time I was there how much grass is there.
We have a lot of mountainous region, hilly places that they're great if you're a top level world class bicyclist. But if you're not, you're going to be sweating a bit. But now with the advent of e-bikes, there's so much more of the Las Vegas Valley, so much more of the trail space that anybody that's interested can visit. You know, one of the things that drives me crazy is cigarette butts. People, they act like they're not trash. And out of everything that we throw on the ground, the one thing that's going to be there long after cancer has taken them away, or as terrible as that sounds, that cigarette butt's still going to be around. People think that it's cotton, and it's not. It's plastic. It will be here forever. And you see people throwing ashtrays out the window of cars. You see people flicking cigarette butts all the time. It's just garbage. It's a small piece of garbage, but it's forever garbage.
That's part of the micro trash kind of example that they talk about. And this is kind of crazy, a little bit gross, honestly, but like we have these sifters where you can sift through the sand in the playgrounds, and there's always cigarette butts in that sand. So like sift through that so kids aren't playing around it.
Yeah. So you rely on grants and direct donations. Tell us about how money comes so you can do all these wonderful things with kids.
Well, we've been really fortunate. We have some great corporate partners that have helped us to do what we do.
You can name names.
Our Next Gen Science Standard program has been funded by Barrick. NV Energy has been an incredible supporter for many, many years. Wells Fargo is helping with our Next Gen Science Standard programs. The Howard Hughes Corporation has been an incredibly good partner for many years. Some of our outdoor programs are also funded through Patagonia and REI. We've just been incredibly fortunate. We've gotten grants from Union Pacific. We've gotten grants from the National Park Foundation, from the Conservation Lands Foundation, and so these have really helped to fuel. And we've had a combination of support from public and private. So we have some funding from the Regional Transportation Commission of Southern Nevada, some funding from the City of Las Vegas. That's one of the things we oversee is the Las Vegas Community Healing Garden. So we have some funding from the City of Las Vegas for that, and then we have private donations that help support it. Funding from the City of North Las Vegas, all these really great partners, and we always work really hard to raise private money so that it's not just public money, but we always have private money. And then we're growing our small donor base and our private donors. We have a group of private donors that support us as well. So.
And those are those access points. Some of those on ramps for that is just a few bucks, right? I mean, it doesn't take much.
Really, it really doesn't take much. I mentioned those field trips, and for the average charter bus, it's about $500 for a charter bus. And so literally $10 can get one child onto that bus. It's really not that heavy of a lift. Our micro grants are $200 micro grants. So if somebody donates $200, that can literally cover the cost of a micro grant. So there's a really large range. One of the things we're doing also is with Lake Mead National Recreation Area. We're a philanthropic partner with them. We're just helping them buy life jackets. Like every year they have deaths at Lake Mead National Recreation Area. The highest number are just from people who get in the water without life jackets. And it's an incredible place to go and explore. We want to make sure everybody goes there safely. So just a $20 donation and you have a life jacket that we can provide. So a lot of on-ramps, as you said, many ways to give that can make significant difference.
You mentioned NV Energy, and you've been in the environmental community for a long time. I don't think the average person knows this. And just because they made that donation, I want to make sure we bring it up, and it's this. NV Energy finally shut down their very last coal-fired plant and contributing coal-fired plant that they brought energy from. So that everybody knows, NV Energy was one of the worst, polluters in the old days. Nevada Power, it's how you made power. It just was. It was just the nature. You burn coal, you take water, it heats and goes up, and we lose the water forever. But the coal that came out of it, and coal ash that came out, was just a dirty, dirty proposition. And NV Energy in 2019 is now coal-free. That is amazing.
Yeah.
That is amazing. You can't. There were, in the bad old days before Harry Reid basically punched their lights out, the Mojave steam generating plant outside of Laughlin, what did we know from coal back then? But little by little they assayed, because there's a certain type of coal and it has a certain fingerprint. Well, yes, it dirtied up the Grand Canyon, and it was made for the air in the Grand Canyon to be terrible. But what they figured out is that coal-fired plant was contributing to a plume that went all the way around the Earth and continuously moved around the Earth. And once they started shutting those down, they realized just how horrible coal is for the environment. And by the way, clean coal is a bunch of bull. There is no such thing as clean coal. It's make-believe.
I was going to say the U.S., and you just re-raised me that by saying the whole Earth.
Literally. And so now Las Vegas can be proud, and I think that whatever else NV Energy is, I don't know. I don't get paid by them or anything like that, but I can say that the change that they made, to me, is nothing short of heroic in terms of how important it is for our kids.
Our experience with NV Energy, they've been one of our longest standing partners in helping us fund and get kids outdoors. And they also come out with volunteer groups. And I think the thing is, a lot of people forget, NV Energy, just like most of our companies, they're just made up of people who live here. Like they live, work, and play the way the rest of us do. And they really do care about the community. So I think a lot of the people who work for them are as excited as the rest of us that, they're now as focused on clean energy as all of us are. And they're good people. And they come out, and we have teams and teams of people from NV Energy. They have these Power of Good t-shirts that come out for our volunteer events as well. So I've had really great experiences working with them. I know my team has.
I know that there was a lot of hostility over the solar wars that took place a couple of years ago, but the reality of it is today they're growing their solar component as fast as just about anybody in the country, which is a great thing as well, particularly in a place, Southern Nevada, that has no water. Solar uses zero water.
No, it's pretty good because I think a lot of people, especially outside of Las Vegas, they think that we just live in the middle of the desert, and probably a lot of kids coming up who don't get out enough. They don't get to realize how great it is. But me coming from the East Coast, I just never get over how convenient, the lake is to go kayaking and swimming and boating.
Yes.
Mount Charleston is to go skiing, go hiking. You've got all these great hiking areas in Henderson and Summerlin. Then you have Utah just above us. I mean, everything's
Right
within
there.
like an hour of driving, hour and a half driving. There's so many options of things to do, and I don't know if
Red
kids
Rock
really
Canyon
get to
and-
appreciate it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
He's
Really
the
neat.
real hiker.
No.
Jeff
Mauricio
is
mentioned Valley of Fire. It's
Yeah.
no matter which direction you go in, you're like you just said, Tyler,
Yeah.
you're going to reach a phenomenal destination in an hour or less. And
It's true. You make an amazing point. I grew up on the East Coast also. I lived in New York City, which is part of why I care so much about local parks, because Central Park was my
Yeah.
big place. But part of it was you couldn't get anywhere else. I mean, it took a long time to get anywhere else. So your point, Tyler, is just it's phenomenal because you can't.
It's taken for granted out
Yeah,
here.
it really is. Like you said, you can in a half hour, an hour drive, you can literally go kayaking, and you can just get up to. You can climb. You can ski here. I mean, it's amazing that we have.
You
all
can
this
ski in the
stuff.
morning and play golf in the afternoon.
It's,
You
No
really
problem.
can. I know. I
It's
have
true.
several friends that do it regularly.
Yeah.
It's true. I mean, we have so much here in Nevada, and I think it's one of our best, least told stories. And people just don't realize what an incredible place this is to live. And it's a great place to visit for the outdoors. One of the things we engage in also is helping amplify the story of outdoor recreation as a business.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see some of the kids we're working with now become the entrepreneurs of the outdoor recreation in the future.
And you know they will.
It's been estimated for the Outdoor Industry Association that it's a $12.6 billion revenue generator for the state of Nevada.
Wow.
And I even say if you think that number is 2/3 wrong, it's still a big number. And that represents a sector that could be a sustainable growth sector where we could get our kids who are in our next gen science standard programs to start the outdoor businesses of the future, to be the outdoor guides, to go to work also in our areas. Like I think Lake Mead generated $368 million for the area around it, Lake Mead National Recreation Area. So that's something people also don't take into consideration is gaming is amazing. It's done so much for our area. There are so many other sectors like technology, but the outdoors by itself, it's a great place to play. It's a great place to explore. And it's also really incredibly important for our economy.
And how many young teenagers go on these trips and it's the first time they've been on a hike, the first time they've seen Lake Mead?
A lot of the kids that we take out. Yeah, one of my favorite memories actually was we took a group of teens out and we went to Lake Mead, and they'd never been to Lake Mead National Recreation Area. Honestly, when we first got out there, like there were some attitudes. Their kids were like, really? Why are we here? And we did some cleanups with them. By the end of the day, there were these teenage kids that had such attitude were like, they were lying on the dock looking at the fish and just like smiling. All of the baggage that they'd walked off the bus with, like, just all the attitude, totally melted away. And they were just these happy kids. And it was great. It was just one of the most wonderful things to see.
That's great.
You know, you look out in the great beyond of Nevada, and you go, great. What are you going to do? But you're bridging that gap. You're actually taking them there and putting it in the middle of it so that they can see. You don't have to do anything if you don't want to. Just being there is something that changes that you'll remember for the rest of your life. Parts in Red Rock, parts in Mount Charleston. It just being there alone, feeling that difference in the air and the moisture and all the trees and all the beauty around. And I think it's just such a laudable thing that you're doing because it affects it's an on-ramp for so many people's lives who never would have had a chance to experience, who never would have had a reason to. So how do people at home get involved? You see, so it's $5, $10. It's tax time, $250, $1,000, $10,000. Tell us how that works and how they give.
It's very easy to find us. You just go to getoutdoorsnevada.org And you can easily come to our giving page and support us. You can support the organization generally, or you can be specific and support just the education program or just the volunteer program. And as I mentioned, really literally $10 donation would make a difference. $200 would help us fund a micro grant. $500 would help us get kids out on a charter bus to go even further afield, like to the Lake Mead experiences. So there's a really wide range of support that can make a difference. And if you want to come to our volunteer events, you just go to our events page and you will literally find maybe 3 or 4 things a weekend that you could come out to do. And most of those are for all ages. So you can just come out and register, and there are a lot of ways to participate because we realize that giving time is also incredibly valuable. And so we appreciate either financial donations or a gift of time.
And we thank you for all the great things that you're doing. That is so. It's a wonderful story, and it just adds so much to so many young lives. And look what it does for Nevada. Look what it does for Nevada. And with that, we call it a day. The Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. I want to sincerely thank Mauricia Baca, Executive Director of Get Outdoors Nevada. Jeff Haney, Vice President of Fiero Communications. Tyler Morgan, publisher of Vegas Legal Magazine. Remember to like and share the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast on Facebook. Also catch us on YouTube, iTunes, or Stitcher. And for all of you out there with a story idea, or an axe to grind, get a hold of Vegas Legal, the leading Southern Nevada legal magazine. You can call Tyler Morgan at
702-222-3476.
Reach out, tell your friends, have a good one. We are out of here.